everyone, I'm Justin Bell and welcome to Drive To Wynn. I'm here at the beautiful SXM studios at the Wynn Las Vegas, and of course the show is always brought to you by Mobil 1 for the love of driving. Now, seeing as we're on SiriusXM, you can find us on the ESPN Extra Channel 81 and of course on demand anytime you want on the SiriusXM app. And if you want to see what we do in the studio, head over to YouTube. You can find us there as well. Well, my guest this week is the one and only Guenther Steiner. He is back on the show. So many things to talk to him about, but as you know, he is not a boring person to talk to. So I'm really looking forward to that. But talk about boring. The Formula One race from Suzuka, Japan this weekend was a little bit boring. And I don't think we've had to say that about Formula One for 2 or 3 years. Yeah, we had the Max domination and all that, but it wasn't boring, was it? But the weekend that unfolded in Japan really just followed a format that, while it had these incredible highlights, the main part of it, the main race, reminded me of races from about a decade ago, and I was trying to put my finger on why that is. I think I'd come up with it, but we'll dive into that a little bit later. I think it was really, in a lot of ways, it wasn't just the domination, it was the fact that you just couldn't overtake, and I need to kind of get my head around why that is. Now, Max Verstappen did win the race from the most stunning pole position of maybe history in some ways, and then he just led from the front all the way to the finish. And while his team boss Christian Horner said it was pretty much a race of perfection, which is high praise indeed. Even Fernando Alonso, talking about his pole position, said there's no one else on the face of the planet that could have put a lap together like that. So lots of sort of praise coming from every quarter. But there was a lot more to it than that as the race went through. Lando Norris was second, Oscar Piastri was third. So, a pretty familiar pattern right up at the front end. But if you look a little deeper and start to see what's happening, there are lots of wheels being set in motion. There's quite a lot of intrigue, I think, coming up over the next few races. But it made me think, and I woke up this morning thinking about this, just how good is Max Verstappen, and why is he so good? I mean, it's his 4th win at Suzuka. He didn't even have the top 4th quickest car, and yet he out-qualified everybody. You hear the word generational talent, don't you? That gets thrown around, and you think to yourself, well, what is a generational talent in any sport? Because anyone that plays at the top level gets paid to do it as a professional is so good, and they have to be. But why is he so good? And, a lot of things with drivers, Michael Schumacher started this. He obviously had the talent, and he introduced fitness of another level to the sport. DC and all those guys credit Michael with raising the game, and meaning they all had to work out more. And we see all the other drivers training, but we never see Max training. I've never even seen him basically sweat. So he never shows what he does behind the scenes with his team and his trainer and his physio, and he must be supremely fit. But that isn't even something that you take into consideration with him. But what makes one athlete better than everybody else, like literally stand ahead? And this is, I wasn't one of those guys, so there's no point in me even trying to compare myself. But I did race against them. Mika Hakkinen was on the grid next to me in one of my first races. And as he took off in the rain, I remember thinking, I don't think I can do that. I'm not going to share that with anyone, but I don't think I can do that. And for me, it's a tough question to answer, but for Max, it's really this cascading effect of excellence. So let's go back a bit. His upbringing was unique and singularly focused through his father, Jos Verstappen. He had the best training. His preparation, even from a young age, being forced to drive around in his little cart in the pouring rain and the cold and the ice while everyone else had gone home. That's all part of that training. I think there were moments that he would never even be able to recognize it, but it comes through and shows through when the going gets tough. So when you have that, you start to get into the best equipment, which obviously requires money, and I think they had access to that, and the right kind of guidance, which he obviously had. But when you have those two together, suddenly you start to get confidence. And confidence is tangible, you can feel it, and people around you start to have these level of expectations, and you start to have goals, and you go, wow, maybe it is achievable. Even from a young age, he knew he was going to be able to do it. And everyone around him was telling him he could do it. And that's sort of then the word on the street. And they say, hey, look out for that young guy, Max Verstappen. So you get even more better equipment and you get even more opportunity. And then you get into Formula One. And at 17, he was signed, by the Toro Rosso Red Bull Junior team. At 18, just after 4 races there, he in the second season, he got promoted to the main team and he goes and wins the Australian Grand Prix, making him the youngest ever driver to win a Formula One race. And then, of course, the rest is history for world titles, countless poles, tens and tens of wins, and fastest laps. And now we arrive with the Max Verstappen of today, who has the ultimate self-confidence. There is zero room for doubt. And he's living on the absolute far reaches of the universe when it comes to the performance envelope. He has an ability to push. I've got this beautiful amalgam Red Bull model back here on my desk, and I look at it. He's able to extract everything from this car. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. It is stunning. He's able to extract everything from this car that no one else is. And he can take it to a place that no one else can, even if they're in the same car. So, it's more than just a winner's mindset. He has become omnipotent, basically, when it comes to being a winner. And the worst part for everyone else, they know it. And they have to deal with it, don't they? Every week they look and they go, give him a chance. What would he do in my car? I mean, I'm not sure whether that was a real quote we saw on social media yesterday, but apparently he said, you put me in your car, in one of the McLarens, you wouldn't have even seen me. Well, it's probably quite true, isn't it? But we won't know about that. Although he might be in a different car coming up. That's something we'll get into in another show. Which leads me to McLaren versus Red Bull and their drivers as we look at the two championships. Now, last year, I think, really did prove, didn't it, that if you have two great drivers scoring regular points, you can, as the tortoises beat the hare, and the hare being Max last year in many ways, and you beat him to the Constructors' Championship. That is what these guys want. The Red Bull want it, Mercedes want it, Ferrari, McLaren, they all want to take that very, very important and lucrative Constructors' Championship. But we don't really look back in history and talk about the Constructors' Championship as much as we go, oh, Michael Schumacher, world champion, Ayrton Senna, drivers world champion. That's what we get excited about. That's what the history books really do focus on. So we're entering into this really interesting unfolding scenario where the advantage of having two talented top fast drivers against one, aka Max, aka the two McLaren drivers, which looked like an advantage, is starting to be a disadvantage as we head through the season of the drivers. Now, championship. Obviously, two cars at the top means you have more strategy options, which means you have more potential to control the race. You can get creative, and that's what we were certainly looking for in this weekend's Suzuka round, but it didn't happen. And we're going to dive into that a little bit later, but it just didn't unfold. So when you have one team with two drivers that basically keep plagiarizing, they keep stealing points from each other, against Max, who can score as many points as he does due to his singular talent, without interference from his teammate, without taking points away from him, I think you're going to start to see, and the betting men in my production team have counted on this. They are going to really see that having Max out front is going to head him in the right direction for the Drivers' Championship. I mean, a long way off it, but what a crazy thing we're going to see unless McLaren are able to absolutely work out what they're going to have to do with their teams. So as we look for the Drivers' Championship, it's going to take care of itself in one way, and it's going to be a hotly contested fight. The Constructors is going to be open. Maybe Mercedes, even Mercedes are going to be right up there, the way they keep scoring points. But what world of ironic hurt is McLaren going to be heading towards as they head throughout 2025? Just think about it. You've got Oscar and Lando. They're both super fast. They achieve these stunning levels of performance in very different ways, actually, if you watch it. They have different strengths at different times. They're both hungry. They're both ambitious. But McLaren have which is a very nice thing if you're in the team, this philosophy of fairness, especially at the beginning of the season, which really does allow them to say, okay, drivers, let's go racing. Let them fight. You can go for it. You can push what you want to do to try and get the best result. The top man wins and all that. But this weekend, once again, we saw a situation where Oscar, at one point, felt he was faster than Lando and would be able to, on his tires, maybe make a challenge for Max. And he asked if he could. He was told no. There's a lot of debate, obviously, and only the people looking at the data inside McLaren will now be able to unfold that mystery, whether the undercut or the overcut would have worked out. But maybe he wouldn't have been faster in the dirty air, and then this McLaren strategy would have ended up benefiting neither of them. But we just don't know unless they try. And I'm feeling at this point in the season, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting there going, you've just got to let them go for it. Just don't start restricting stuff too early. But in a way, it ends up looking a bit like bad parenting. You know, you try and keep both kids happy and you try and treat them both fairly. But in the end, they're both going to be upset at you because nothing seems fair. So I'm thinking that this nice guy approach is actually going to backfire on them. Certainly Red Bull hope so, don't they? Christian Horner, I mean, he's a nice guy and all that, but they are absolutely rigid and ruthless. And I think they look over at the Orange team going, that is a style of management that is weak. And I think we're going to see that. I think he's going to probably be right for that, because over at Red Bull, they really don't have that nice guy gene at all, as we saw the way they treated some of their drivers. Well, anyway, very quickly, before we introduce our guests, I think we also learned something else this week, and that is that the magic moments of sport really do lie in chaos, maybe more so than the ultimate pure performance. And of course, I'm actually talking about tire degradation. And I was the first to get annoyed over the last couple of years at watching the lap times and seeing the drivers running 2 or 3 seconds off pace in the middle of the race and managing it. But actually, now it's showing through Suzuka that was really what brought the entertainment, that brought the energy to life. The track was resurfaced. The tires really had this very low tire degradation, and we had 20 drivers running flat out. Radio messages saying, oh, you're good to go, and there's like 35 laps to go. They're able to run super quick all the way to the end. I think we only had one real shift of position, which was Lewis on Hadjar during the race, and it left few options open for the strategy. I mean, look at the two McLarens. They really couldn't achieve anything, whatever we want to say about it. They just couldn't pull it together and take the risk because there wasn't enough delta to make it happen. So all the drivers are so good, the grip's so high, the downforce is so intense, they can run flat out. But I think without the story arc of tire degradation, because the braking, I always thought they should extend the braking zones, but they can't do that. And they brake so late, it's very hard to go by. That's why they brought DRS in, to make you faster over your competition down the straight. So I can't really believe I'm saying it, but unless you make the drivers have to manage the car, think with their brains, not just go flat out, use their intellect to manage the ebb and flow of a motor race with their strategists, sometimes, holding back so they can attack with the next foot. Without that, I think we are really in a strange place, which is funny because at the weekend, someone asked me, do you ever think you'll see AI racing? Well, that's what AI racing would be like, isn't it? Absolute no mistakes, pure perfection, and it's boring as anything I can imagine. I mean, imagine it was ping pong. It would just go on for hours until one of them fell over, exhausted. So the magic in life really is watching humans struggle, isn't it? And those little bits of magic that happen when they raise their game. Well, it's that time of year again, guys, to get your plans in order to attend the 2025 Concours right here at the Wynn Las Vegas. This year's event is a weekend-long celebration that promises really to be the social event of the fall season. It's where the world's top prestigious car manufacturers and automakers will grace the greens of the Wynn Golf Club for the 2025 Concours at Wynn Las Vegas. It's the 4th annual gathering, and it features more than 250 unique cars within 4 judged and non-judged pillars for vehicle entry and display. The event will be from October 31st through November 2nd. And for more information regarding the tickets and room packages, you can visit lasvegasconcours.com. Well, now let's bring on Guenther Steiner. He, as you know, was a former motorsport engineer and former team manager. He was the team principal of Haas Formula One team from 2016 to 2023, the star of Drive to Survive. Everybody loved him. It's made him famous. He's now a commentator and analyst on certain Formula One podcasts. He has his own podcast and a couple of books out and is in huge demand on his speaking tour. Well, Guenther, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Justin. How about you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Yeah, well, thanks for taking the time. I know you just finished taping your own podcast, so it's a podcast kind of morning. I bet you had a lot to talk about, or maybe not so much to talk about from the weekend. But I thought before we dive in, what have you been up to at the moment? Because I can't just rely on social media to follow you, but I know you're doing the speaking tour and the book and everything. What are you up to?
Yeah, let's start with the book. I mean, the second book came out in October last year. I did a speaking tour, a book tour, whatever you want to call it. Did 25 events in the UK last year. And then I went to Australia this year, beginning of the season, about 1.5 weeks before the race, and did nine speaking events there, book tour. Then did the Australian race TV for Network 10, the Australian TV, and then went straight from there to China to do Chinese GP for RTL, the German broadcaster. So keeping busy. And then I go back to do the next leg of the book tour, the speaking tour in the UK, starting in 2 weeks. And then in Miami as the ambassador, pretty busy there the weekend. So I'm keeping busy. And then, as you said before, I've doing my own podcast, Wank Hours, which we just recorded. I think it was number 3 or number 4 this year. So no, all good, more than busy enough.
I love that. And I'm sure on your show, you had to have broken the race up from the qualifying. What did you think about watching Max Verstappen's pole lap? Because I wasn't really expecting that. And, you're a guy that's identified talent early on in their careers, and you're someone that's seen, when you see the data from a driver, their heartbeat, right? You know what was going on with Max on that lap. What do you take away from his performance on Saturday?
I mean, there's just one word to say: fantastic. I think what he did on Saturday was just like outstanding performance in that lap. I mean, it's we all know that he hasn't got the best car out there, but he made up for it. In Japan, as you well know, it's one of his racetracks. You can make a difference, if you need to take risks, but if you have talent, you can take it. And obviously, I think he used everything he had there. There was nothing left in there.
Yeah, there really wasn't, right? There was nothing. Even when Fernando Alonso says that that's as good as you can get, there's no one else in the world that could probably do what he does right now. I think that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, that's from Fernando, which is another fantastic driver, being told that. And I always say Max is in the moment. Even if he hasn't got the best car, he doesn't get. Obviously he complains that he hasn't got, not complains, he mentioned that he hasn't got the best car, but he tries to make up for himself and he puts a lot of effort in. He doesn't give up and says, I haven't got the best car, so why would I do this? No, I still want to win. He's still hungry. He still wants to win world championships. And the guy has got a massive talent, but also works very hard, to get the best out of it at every situation.
Yeah, and that's what I said at the beginning of the show. He has been bred, hasn't he, like a thoroughbred to be who he is today. And I always wondered, and I've asked some of the most famous drivers, Mario Andretti, Jackie Stewart and everyone, when you were in the driver's briefing, who was their guy? Who was the one that they'd look at and go, oh, crap, he's on form today. That's how the others must feel, right? When they know in the driver's meeting, they know when they watch him go out. If you give Max an inch, he's just going to take the whole mile.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes him, he's not only talented, he's also mentally very strong. Everything is there. And he's just riding this wave. But I would say he works as well very hard, on the simulator, on everything. He just thinks about his racing, all day long. And combine that with his talent, and that's what he get out of it. And he's happy to take a risk. He doesn't want to be second. He wants to win.
Yeah, at all costs. Do you remember when you first saw him? Do you remember what race or what year you first sort of looked across and went, shit, I wish I had that guy?
No, I remember when he came to Formula One, because it was a little bit of a weird story. He came straight from F3 to Formula One. I was how good this guy is. I actually know his father, or at the time I knew his father better than him, Jos. And I was like, wow, because Jos was a very good driver at his time. I mean, obviously, he was not always in the best position, and sometimes was a little bit, I would say, rough around the edges, to say it politely.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember him, but Jos had a very big talent, because to get into a Benetton at that time, you needed to be good, because the Benetton was a good car. So, but when Max came, a lot of people are, he's too young. He has never done, it was GP2 at the time, coming from F3, how can he do it? But I think Red Bull and Mercedes saw the talent in him. And Red Bull gave him the seat in F1 straight away, while Mercedes said, oh, you need to go to GP2 first. And he didn't want to do that. So I remember that time. But at the time, would I have expected that he would become this super champion? Maybe not.
Yeah. One of the things that, before we just talk about the race, just picking up on that, your job when you're a team principal, as much as anything, is that hand holding of these young guys, right? Trying to keep them on track, all the pressure of Formula One, all the expectations, the investment. And when you sign a driver, yes, sometimes they bring money or whatever, but the investment is so colossal. And you can see whether especially Zach Brown with his two drivers, and Andrea Stella, even, with Charles and Carlos last year, having to help them and guide them. I don't think Christian has to do a bit of that with Max. Does he? I don't think he has to be the father figure. He just does it.
No. I mean, Max doesn't need anybody anymore. Max has got, as I said, he's so complete now. He's got the confidence. He knows what he wants. And he has got his people around him, his family, Jos and Raymond Vermeulen, which look after him. He has got his trusted people around him, which, if anything, he needs. And I think Christian just has to try to give him what Max wants, the best race car in the world. I say just, which is not an easy task, by the way, to put that in perspective. But he can focus on that one, because you don't have to be worried about Max not performing. Max will perform. That is not a problem. And I want to go back what you just said before about Zach. I mean, finding Lando and Oscar, which is, now obviously we all know, oh, that was a good decision. But when he took it, he didn't know what he was getting into it, because they both came from F2 to McLaren. Yeah. They have not been anywhere else. And he had a very good feeling about that, and did a very good job to find them two, because they are two very good drivers, and getting them straight from F2 and bringing them into F1 to winning drivers is pretty cool to do. I mean, I always say that is like how they did it. It's very nice.
So you have respect for Zach, the way he operates. Do you relate? Who do you relate to most? I guess that's two questions. What do you think of Zach as his management style, and who do you whose management style, because you were one of them for almost 10 years out of the rest of them, the team principals?
Oh, I would say I respect what Zach did. I mean, Zach in the beginning, he struggled. He inherited a team which was all over the place, but he fixed it in a few years. And I say about the drivers he picked, he picked them. And when he picked them, it's also, we always have to think, when you get somebody from F2 the first years, what the advantage you've got, they are not very expensive, because you give them an opportunity. Obviously, they are not cheap now anymore, but in the beginning, at least, you make some savings for the team. But look at McLaren; the performance came up, and the commercial side of it. I mean, that car hasn't got 1 square inch where there is not a sticker on with a sponsor.
No.
So it's like he did a very good job. The team principle. I mean, it's very difficult to compare yourself to any of the other ones, and I think that would be not the right thing to do, in my opinion. And myself.
Hey, yeah. Oddly enough, the world knows you yourself. That's kind of cool. How long into the race on Saturday night, we were watching it, probably the same as you, from Suzuka, did you go, this could be a pretty boring race? A lot going on behind the scenes, but on the face of it, God, Guenther, it reminded me of 15 years ago, when Formula One was barely watchable because of the procession of cars. And I'd always think, what makes it better? Well, I think we learned a lot this weekend about the importance of tire degradation, right? And the importance of introducing variables into the sport, into the course of a race. But what's your sort of recap on the race?
I thought you were going to ask him, when did you fall asleep? Because it was 1 more night.
Well, in England,
yeah,
in England, yeah, what's funny, Guenther? We do something in England. They say, we had a power outage in England during our big football matches. When if it get boring because everyone went and put the kettle on for a cup of tea and you would crash the grid. I don't know if that was the equivalent on Sunday, but almost, right?
Yeah, almost, yeah. No, but back to your other question about the tires. I mean, it is like everybody says, yeah, but you should have tire degradation but then you have tire degradation, and then it is the racetrack. You cannot overtake. I mean, you know that.
Yeah,
you have been racing cars. You know that the DRS zone, at the finish of the DRS zone, there is no braking. I mean, how can you overtake there? It's not going to happen, huh?
No,
with the cars so close together now.
No.
So, but if you have got tire degradation, if you say, oh, the tire is too good, it doesn't degrade, it's like, all right, so they should make a worse tire. So everybody starts to manage the tire, and the guy in front manages the speed of the other ones because he can go faster. And then again, if the tire would be different, it would be better. It's so difficult to do. I think it's just I think Suzuka is a fantastic racetrack. But does it give good racing? No. We saw the evidence a few days ago, It's just because it's so difficult to overtake. And I think everybody was going at pretty high speed during the race. Nobody was really managing because it wasn't needed with the tires they got. They were giving good performance. So, how do you bring in variables? I have no idea. I go with your suggestions there, Justin.
Yeah, I think so. It was wild, right? When I can't actually remember which driver, it was more than one, but there's still 38 laps to go, and they said, you're good to the end, you can push. Jesus. We never hear that in a race with that much time to go. So they were running fast. I know there's been a lot of discussion, armchair analysts going, oh, McLaren could have undercut, they could have overcut. There was many more things they could have done to disturb the force there and the status quo with Max. But really, there wasn't enough of a delta, was it? If you think about it, they should have done something, but I don't think their options were as wide open as we think.
No, I think there was this suggestion out, why did they not overcut and try to get an advantage? Because they knew they were running wide open. They were running flat out. There was nothing left. And the strategist knows exactly the prediction. That what he does is the strategist said, even if we stay out another 5 laps, we will not gain enough advantage to pit stop and come out in front. That's my opinion about it. I mean, I didn't do the strategy for them, but I mean, McLaren is, they know what they're doing, and they just came up, whatever we do, it's not going to happen. Should they have tried it, or could they have tried it without losing anything? Maybe yes, but the only thing maybe what would have come out, that maybe Oscar then would have overtaken Lando if they would have left Lando out to try to do an overcut. So there's a lot of scenarios, but I don't think that we need to teach McLaren how to do a strategy. I think they just had in their predictions, okay, if we stay out there, nothing will happen because we will not gain or lose because the cars behind us, I think at the time they were about 6-7 seconds behind them. They will not catch us, but nothing will change. Max will stay in front. So just cover it. And, obviously, Lando tried to overtake him on the pit out, which didn't work out as well.
No, I mean, he really screwed himself there by dropping himself like a second and a half into turn 1. He could have been right up his arse, right, going through turn 1. But then you have to try everything. That's what people who have never done what we've done don't realize. If there's the smallest gap of any chance especially when you're up against Max, you have to take it. It just didn't work. But it shows what a dull race it was when that's the highlight. That's what we're talking about, is a bit of, sideways action on the grass on the pit lane. That's not exactly the stuff of legends, is it? But I guess, it brought a little bit of excitement to us. And you could tell both of them were dealing with, afterwards, they both appreciated it was nothing. They just made the grass cutting comments. Hey, you give us an idea of the depth of strategy resources a top team like McLaren would have. Obviously, you know what Haas had, but I mean, you and I are sitting there just going, well, why didn't they do that? So is half the people that watch the race. But what is the sequence that happens on the pit wall from the gut feeling of the team principal and the engineer on the pit wall all the way through to the people at the factory, I guess? What is that lineup? What's the setup for that strategy?
I mean, you have the chief strategist, which is running, which is at the racetrack, and then you have got some strategy people back in the headquarters, which is doing the input work to the program, which is all they check it is all automated now these days, and they've got the advantage. They get all this information. How fast are we running? How fast is the other one running? And it gives you an outcome, and everybody has access. Not everybody on pit wall, everybody's got access to that information, and the strategist says we cannot do anything, and that's what is happening. And the gut feeling normally in a race like this doesn't come in anymore because it's too clean cut. You're white. I mean, you're running at your fastest you can go. You're not managing tires. You know the degradation because you've got the number from your car, from the other cars, because they continues to do lap, and you know exactly this is what's happening. And the gut feeling here doesn't come in. The gut feeling is just like, let's try to do something stupid. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, we look more stupid than we should, and nobody does it because nobody wants to look stupid, intentionally. So the gut feeling normally comes in when rain starts or things like when big circumstances come along, or when you have a feeling maybe there could be a safety car because a car is standing beside the road or stop somewhere. A safety car could come or a red flag could come because there was an accident. There where the gut feeling is coming in and say, let's do this. Or when the rain comes, let's change the tires. But otherwise, gut feeling this day, especially in a race like on Sunday, when you know the racetrack, you know the tires, you have got so much information. It is all numerical.
Yeah. Do they use any AI?
I mean, a lot of this is AI, based. It's based on what was done before and what is happening. A lot is AI, but it's applied since a long time. This AI is not like something new for them now, since AI is trendy.
Wow, beyond our comprehension, I'm sure. Because we don't. Most of us only use it on Siri, right? That's all you know. But and she doesn't even understand me. Actually, you know what? Sometimes when you watch a Ferrari call, you think they might be using Siri, and she doesn't. What you say? I'm not sure. So, the final stages of the race, we have Oscar saying he's lying in third. He feels he's a little quicker than Lando. Should they at least have given him a shot? What do you think?
I think as well as me. Yeah, he can get past Lando, but he cannot get past Max.
No.
I mean, exactly. So in the end, they would have, that's my opinion, they would just have opened it up to being a little bit of a drama on TV, or let him pass. And then if he cannot overtake Max, which I don't think he could have, because otherwise, if he was this fast, why did he not overtake Lando under racing circumstances? Because he couldn't get him close enough, He had a feeling he can get close to Max, but that doesn't mean that he can overtake Max. So I think McLaren said, if we let him pass, then they've got the scenario. We have to get the other one passed afterwards. It's like, why are you doing this? We are risking something for nothing. And they knew that they couldn't overtake Max.
Yeah. I think I talked about it in my open is they are in a unique position, and Zach and Andrea Stella have so much to deal with, don't they? They have two excellent drivers, both hungry for success and ambitious, amazing talents, different types of talent and mental strength, but they have two horses going for one trophy, and Max is a single runner going for that Drivers' Championship, which means it's much easier for Red Bull. It's just about trying to win races. They, as team management, they've got, I think, and that's what helped them make that decision of Oscar not going past Lando, because they have to unwind that decision. They have a lot on their plate as this season unfolds.
Yeah, but it's a nice problem to have. If you've got two drivers good as them, it's nice to have. It is a problem, but it's a nice problem. I always see a positive. I mean, they are in a very good position. Obviously, the only thing they don't have is Max Verstappen, but otherwise they've got the best of the best as a team. I think as a team driver-wise, they and them and Ferrari are the best in the moment. I'm not saying that Mercedes hasn't got a good driver pairage, but they've got one rookie. A rookie's a rookie. We all know that. It takes a while until you get to be in the top 5 of drivers, and the same is with Red Bull. They've got Max, and then I don't know who is next in the car, but in the moment they've got Yuki, but it's not a pairing like Lando and Oscar, and it's not a pairing like Lewis and Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, I mean, Julian Palmer said, and he's, again, like us, not privy to their team insight, but he's like, at this stage of the season, you just got to go for race wins. I know you got the long picture, but race wins are what count. And all you want as a driver and all you want as a team are race wins. And if you keep it like that, especially in the first third of the season, I guess what you're saying is the story will start to write itself.
Absolutely. And I give it more than a third of the season. I give it half of the season. And then the story's writing and said, as long as Max doesn't keep on scoring points as he's doing now, because then at some stage you have to put your emphasis on one of the two drivers who is going for the World Championship. Otherwise, he could end up again like last year. They win the constructors, but not the drivers' championship.
Yeah. So Max wins, Lando second, Oscar third. It was, at the end, I think, we walk away. So you could only really talk about Max's excellence at the front. But how do you think? Yuki's performance really wasn't relative to what he did the rest of the weekend. I mean, he showed strong. He came in very confident. But boy, oh boy, that's a poison chalice second seat, isn't it? But what do you think? I think he's actually not going to do too bad over the next few races.
No, I think he's doing pretty well. I mean, I expected more, and not. I don't want to be negative about it. It's just like my expectation, because I rate him highly, and he did very well. In the practice sessions. In qualifying, it didn't go all his way, but and then I was in the race. I think he gained 2 places from where he started or something like this. At least he gained something, so he did okay. He didn't stand out, but as you said, it is a difficult position to be in, but I think he will get out on the good side at the end of the year. He started off in the free practice sessions, with the pressure in his home country, going in beside Max Verstappen. Everybody looks at you, it's like, it's not easy, but, his performance was in Japan, I would say, mediocre, but it will get better.
Yeah. Thankfully, it was mediocre in the face of a lot of other mediocrity. It wasn't like it's good when not everyone is doing brilliantly, but it doesn't help when your teammates at the front. But you know what? That's the thing. I think you saw that with Perez last year. At some point, you have to say to yourself, I can't beat that guy right now. That's tough for a driver to say. So why am I even bloody worrying about comparing myself to him? I should just worry about my job and getting points. And I think if he has that mindset, I think he'll do all right.
Exactly the same opinion. If you look up to him, I think it was a little bit like in the time of Michael Schumacher. Nobody could beat the guy. If you could go along with him and be in the team and score points like Rubens Barrichello did all the time, you had a career. But if you go in there and try to beat Max Verstappen on day one, it's not going to happen.
No.
He's just so good in the moment. And you go in there, prove yourself and say, I score consistently points and I can get on the podium a few times. That's already success. And I can learn a lot of this Max Verstappen guy.
A lot, I bet. Watching his data, you can see the heartbeat. You can see what he does. If you think Eddie Irvine, he mastered being the number 2 as he's sitting in his Caribbean island that he owns with his plane. And you know what I mean? He also never got married, Guenther, and that saves a lot of money, and never got divorced. He was the perfect second driver, wasn't he? He was the supporting role, let Michael do what he did, was a Ferrari factory driver, made a lot of money, and cracked in some points and a win occasionally. That's the way to do it.
And enjoyed that to be there. He always said, I was the best driver. There was only one better one, which was Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it.
And I was in the team with him, but I was the best driver. I'm the best driver except Michael Schumacher. So, live with that one. So, and as you say, he just knew that Michael was had this little more. And Eddie was, I wouldn't say content to be beaten by Michael, but he knew And he didn't get destroyed mentally by him.
No.
As you said, he picked up, if Michael messed something up, or if Michael had a problem, he picked up for him, That's what he was there for. He had a lot of podiums, quite a few wins, and almost won a championship. Almost was very close to it when Michael had the accident, So, but obviously, now he lives a happy life now, I guess,
Yeah, he's all right. He does all right. Tough decisions in Formula One. I was just thinking about it while you were talking about, the ruthlessness, them taking Liam out and putting him in. I mean, so many tough decisions in Formula One. When you were team principal, what did you find the hardest decisions to make? What really dug into your soul and kept you awake at night?
Yeah, it's always, if you have to let people go, it's never nice, but it's not only drivers, it's in the staff, but sometimes you have to do it. It's part of your job. That's what keeps you, I wouldn't say awake, because it's part of your job. And if these things keep you awake, you're not doing your job because you're not sleeping. So you have to deal with it. And but it's not good things to do. But that is they're part of the job. And obviously, if I would say with Liam, I mean, he had a soft landing, as you well know. He's still in Formula One and driving still a good car, because Isaac Hadjar, I think he finished 7th in the end. So it's not a bad car who's in it. So, sometimes you have to say, hey, a step back is 2 forward. And that's what Liam Lawson should see it as.
Yeah, it's certainly not. He's got the chance to date the second prettiest girl, in the bar. So it's not so bad. I love in Drive to Survive when I see you in the little Fiat Cinquecento driving off with your buddy there. Sorry, what's his name?
Matteo Binotto.
And I love that. I think it's one of the fun, you can see the friendship you have and the enjoyment you have. But it just made me think about Lewis at Ferrari, the whole culture of being in Italy. I know you that's part of your heritage, the Italian side. I am really enjoying watching Lewis's transition into Formula One with Ferrari. I think the whole thing has been, an enjoyable spectacle. And obviously Lewis winning the sprint race a couple of weekends ago, should put to rest the fact that he's an old dog trying to learn new tricks. But what do you think it's really like for him at Ferrari? Where do you think he's really having to dig in and put in extra work?
I think to understand the culture, after you have been in a team, it was a Mercedes more than 10 years. It's a different culture just to get used to it. But I think Lewis is a pretty smart guy. He knows that he cannot change the culture. He has to adapt what is there, and that's what he's doing. And I think that's what he's trying hard to. And obviously, by winning the sprint race you mentioned just before, that gives him a lot of credit in a team like Ferrari. You come in and I know it's a sprint race, but it's still the second race you're driving for a team and you win it. That is good, People will like that. The team comes to help you, And I think Lewis is just putting effort in to understand how the team is working and then trying to say what he wants to do different, or what he has to suggest, but not forcing it, because that will not work at Ferrari. But he knows that without me telling him.
Yeah, he does. And everybody at Ferrari in the factory, you always talk about other teams and they are passionate all the way through the factory, but in Italy, it's a culture, isn't it? And he is part of that, and he knows how to embrace that. And you sort of, when a driver does badly, there's a lot of pressure from the media. When a driver does well, they lift you up and hail you as a hero. And Lewis is a good hero model. He knows how to play that role. So I think you're right. Coming off the back of the win, that's super important. And I think for any driver to wear the red race suit, as my dad says, it's the highlight of your career. So I think hopefully the two of them, he and Charles Leclerc, can make their way towards the front a bit more when they sort the car out. But you can never write them off over maybe the second half of this season.
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, look at last year. They did a very good job. This year, I think we all had a bigger expectation from them to start the season with. This qualification of both cars in China was not what they were looking for. But, it's only one way to go forward. And if it does happen, I think Lewis will get a lot of credit for it as well.
Yeah. Man, it's fun. It's just all these story arcs, isn't it? It's like you're drawing them. I mean, I called George Russell the other day. He's like a sneaky guy. He's the guy that gets the girl by being quiet while the rest of you get drunk. I mean, that's really what Mercedes, their approach, because I want to talk about the rookies, and I do want to start with Antonelli. I mean, the youngest guy to lead a Formula One race, obviously, the pit stop circulation, still pretty cool. Youngest guy to get a fastest lap in a race. I know his tires were good, but he still did it. I feel that considering, especially the way he started last year when he had a spectacular couple of wrecks, I feel Toto is doing an incredible job of managing this talent. Would I be right, Guenther, in saying the message from the team principal to him is, we know you're fast. You're here because you're so fast. Just do what I say and you're going to represent the team well and get the points. Do you feel that's probably what they're saying? That's what Toto's saying to him?
Yeah, I would say so. And you know, they know each other so well, so for so long. So I think they don't even need to speak about it anymore. They can talk without talking.
Yeah, because I think they probably say as well, you know, they know when to unleash him. The kid's freaking fast, right?
Moment you can just exactly, yeah. He will get there.
Yeah, but they're handling it well. I think he's driving within a box, you know, and he's listening to them and gaining the miles, and I think it's almost impressive to see him not be pushed to the limit to realize what he's doing. So yeah, I think that's going to be a fun one. What about the other rookies? I mean, in a way, who would you hire out of? I mean, Hadjar, Behrman, Doohan, I mean, Colapinto. Who would you be signing?
I would say Behrman and Hadjar. I'm very positively surprised about Hadjar. I didn't know a lot of him. I mean, you know, I obviously watched in F2. He finished second against Bortoleto. I mean, Bortoleto in the moment hasn't got the chance to show how good he is or what he can do because he hasn't got the car for it. That's always unfortunate when you end up in this position that everybody's like, yeah, what are you doing? You're second last. Yeah. I mean, it's not down to him. But I mean, Hadjar, I'm positively surprised. Behrman, I wouldn't say I knew how good he was, but I knew how good he was, you know, because when I was still running a team, he had 2 FP1s, and that was the whole plan behind Behrman. Because again, I took the advice from Fred at the time because he said, this guy is good, you know, let's try to develop him into a driver. That was in 23, and that was the plan. And now he's full-time in an F1 car, which I'm very happy for him about, you know, so very good. But he's very good. He was very mature. He made mistakes on the first race in Australia, but then recovered. And now look what he's doing, you know, he's delivering.
Yeah, I think you're right about Hadjar. He's actually really solid. I mean, he's up there. He's scoring points. He isn't putting a foot wrong since that diabolical first practice session, you know, for him at the first race of the season. And now he got through that, and I like him. I think you never know how bright their light's going to shine, do you, Guenther? But you know they deserve a place there.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know how bright it will be because you need to be at the right place at the right time to switch that light on as well.
Yeah. Because I think Doohan's under a lot of pressure, and he cost them a lot of money last weekend. And you know, as soon as you start to see in social media the rumors of, you know, Colapinto's testing already, getting himself ready to get in the car. There was none of that in the old days. You wouldn't know what the right hand was doing when you're the left hand. Now we read everything, and they read it as well. So it must just compound the problem. It must get under their skin, I think. But Doohan seems a strong mental kid. But when you're in a mid to rear field team, you can't afford to rack up the damage, can you?
No, and you know, it was a big one as well. And you know, he was not using, or he left the DRS open, you know, and you know, having a crash like this, it hurts as well. It doesn't hurt only your ego; it hurts physically as well. And it's never good because it was a big one, you know. And then obviously the team is not happy because it's a lot of money in the budget cap era. That money can be used somewhere else instead of repairing a car because it was a big damage. And you know, the mechanics, they work hard all the time anyway. So for them, there was not a big difference working normally doing that one. But in the budget cap, it's never a nice thing to spend this amount of money just because you crashed.
Yeah, I was thinking as well as on my drive out to Vegas yesterday, I was thinking it's a great year for a lot of rookies to get into Formula One. There's a lot of opportunity. But do you think the Formula One establishment might pump the brakes a little bit on rookies for a while? We got enough new guys, and there's still some amazing, more mature talent out there. Do you think they'll, just pause a bit?
I don't know, because if you look at it, if you look at the good ones, Behrman, Hajar, what you see from them, it's always good to have new people in, because what it becomes at a lower cost, than taking the old guys. So, and if you cannot get one of the good old guys, and you just take a guy which is good but average, you say, hey, I better take a risk and take somebody young, a little bit like we said before, Zach Brown did with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris at the time, that can work out as well. So I think we opened up a little bit to see who is around. If you're good, you've got a chance to get in now.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's exciting. And the way the junior formulas are, there's so much investment in these young guys. I mean, it. I don't think when people come up to you, I'm sure they do at your talks and things and say, I want to be a Formula One driver. I want my kid to be a Formula One driver. I always go, are you rich? And they go, no. And I go, do you know rich people? And they go, I don't know. And I said, are you as fast as Kimi Raikkonen? And they go, no. I go, well, here's my advice. Go and get rich in business, and then you can come back and you can drive any sports car you want in the world. That's sort of my standard advice. But it's tough in Formula One because the level of commitment and investment for these young guys on the ladder coming up, it's stunning, isn't it?
Yeah, it's stunning. But you need investment, but you need the basis that you need to have talent, as well. I mean, just with money, you cannot do it. You need to have talent, dedication, commitment.
Yeah. Quickly, let's talk about the FIA fines. I know, especially you, because I know your favorite British word, and you become famous off the back of it. And you know what? It's funny because people think, British people, we're sort of posh and everything, but we have filthy mouths, as you know, which is why all these drivers, they're foreign and they go to England, don't they, to work with the Formula One team, and immediately they learn all this really bad language from the British mechanics, which comes out on the radio. Where is the balance, Guenther, between racing, intense performance, and the show? Where do we start to define that line? And should they get fined for swearing when they're doing 200 miles an hour?
I think it's. I always say it like this: is swearing good? No. Is swearing bad? No. It's like, and you said that there. It's entertainment. It's competition. It's emotions. If you go down somewhere, we are fighting at 200 miles per hour, and somebody cuts you off. You've been a race car driver. What did you say? Hey, my friend, could you do this different next time?
Do it again.
Don't say that.
No.
Yeah, exactly. You say, yes. F off, basically, and it's part of the emotions, and it's part why people love the sport. If you take out the emotions of anything, not only about sport, who would watch it? So I think he could have dealt, instead of giving fines, sit the drivers down. They are sitting down every day at the race weekend. Go there and tell them, and just tell them, guys, tone it down a notch. We are a little bit going a little bit too far. They're all smart people. They would agree to it, and then you don't have this big controversy about big fine monies, because we're talking real big money here,
Big money.
As we say, Formula One, maybe 20,000 doesn't seem to be a lot, but it is a lot of money, $20,000,
I know.
So I think we made a too big of a story out of something which could have managed a lot differently.
Yeah, I agree. In the drivers' briefings, in the drivers' conferences, maybe you should get fined for swearing. You should be mature enough to do that.
Exactly. You should be mature enough and say in the press conference, do not do it,
Yeah.
But if you're in a race car, it's like, guys, if you continue to do it, it's not good. But then, again, they've got they should speak with FOM as well. If somebody goes off, just cut off his radio. Don't broadcast it.
Don't broadcast it. I mean, I'd never heard of a 20,000 euro poop before. But poor old Carlos Sainz, Jesus. I mean, that's when you've got to use common sense, right? I mean, he missed the anthem because he has a stomach bug, but it would have been a lot more ugly, Guenther, And worse for Formula One if he had soiled himself standing there to the Japanese national anthem. Can you imagine? That would have been the worst for everybody. Yeah. Oh, wow. No. Well, listen, let's talk about this upcoming weekend quickly. Obviously, we're heading into Bahrain. Purpose-built track, beautiful circuit. It was won by Max Verstappen last year. What do you think? Can he roll that momentum off Japan into Bahrain?
I think the McLarens will be back at the front.
Okay.
Testing happened there. Everybody was there with the current car already this year. Good data. So the setup will be ready to go. So I think the McLarens are my favorites there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they have that pace, they have that confidence. I think it's just going to be interesting to see which of them will win. What do you think about Mercedes? I think Russell, like I said, he's sitting as a bit of on the fence, watching the fight, waiting for his moment to jump in. They could be good there too.
Yeah, I think they could be good there too. And we forget they were on the podium a few times already this year, and nobody noticed, almost.
Yeah. I know.
It was like, it was very weird. It was never a big story when they were on the podium and nobody noticed. So they are just waiting there for their moment, and they can have their moment because they are actually in the moment, I think, the second strongest car.
Yeah, I know. What do you think? Did you enjoy racing in Bahrain? Did you enjoy, I know the track's right in the middle of the desert, isn't it? So it's well out of the town. But what are some of the demands of driving there with the sand, I guess, and the desert?
No, I think it's a good racetrack. The atmosphere there is always good. They look after it, the racetrack. So the sand is there. It's just like another element which comes in when the wind is up. You get a little bit of sand, and it gets slippery. But I think the first time it happened there, it was like, oh, there is sand on the track. Now it's just part of the specific racetrack. It's sand on the track.
Like Zandvoort, exactly the same. I mean,
yeah.
I remember going there. Do you remember in the early days before so many buildings? I went there in Vauxhall Lotus, in Opel Lotus, and that track was like it was on the beach. I just remember sand coming across, and our little cars with no downforce. It was fun.
Yeah, it was sliding a lot, though.
Sliding a lot. I know, but that was the first time I'd been to Holland, and I thought, I'm going to move there. I'd never seen so many pretty girls in my life. I don't think they say the same in Bahrain. Okay, well, thank you so much, Guenther, for joining the show. As always, really fun to hear you. Which race will you come to next? Are you going to go to Miami?
Miami, yeah. I'm ambassador of Miami GP, so we'll be Miami, yeah. That's my next one, yeah.
Okay, well, we might see you there, so I hope we do. I'll stay in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you to Guenther, obviously, for taking the time. Don't forget to follow his podcast. This is the second race in the triple header, heading into Bahrain. Thank you very much to Mobil 1, as always, for the love of driving. Thank you to the Wynn Las Vegas for having us. And of course, remember, Sirius XM ESPN Extra channel number 81, and follow us on demand on the Sirius XM app. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.